Hello and welcome to Bringing Education Home. I'm Herb.
And I'm Christina, and together we're bringing you ideas that help strengthen families so that they can be the happiest, healthiest, and most successful families possible that are both inside
And outside the box. If you like the show, be sure to follow Christina on Facebook.
and please leave us a like, review, and comment on your favorite podcast platform.
Today, I have the pleasure of reintroducing Dr. Mort Orman, MD. Dr. Mort is an internal medicine physician and a 40-year anger elimination and stress elimination expert. He has written 23 books on how to eliminate anger and stress without using drugs, relaxation exercises, or other traditional management techniques. He is the creator of the 10-session Angry No More Anger Elimination Program, the Anger Internal Causes Framework, and the Ultimate Anger Elimination System. Dr. Orman has led more than 100 anger and stress elimination workshops for doctors, nurses, lawyers, business owners, entrepreneurs, other professionals, the clergy, and even the FBI. He's also been the official sponsor of the National Stress Awareness Month in the US every April since 1992. His newest book is Dr. Orman's Life-Changing Anger Cure: Eliminate Unwanted Anger Without Anger Management so you can be happier, healthier, and don't end up alone. That's a great title. Thank you very much for joining us again. Welcome, Dr. Orman.
Well, thanks. It's good to see you both again and speak to your audience again.
Thank you so much. Yeah, exactly. So we wanted to make sure that the audience knows that episode 20, we interviewed Dr. Orman. And so if you want to go back and get a little bit more of his story or hear how he was doing things back then, and then we're going to get into everything he's doing now, go back and check out episode 20, February of 2023. And it was amazing, that conversation. And we're really looking forward to today's conversation as well.
Now you put me under pressure.
Oh no, it'll be perfect.
So how did we go from an internal medicine physician to becoming an anger management or an anger reduction elimination specialist?
There we go.
Well, you know, they actually teach you how to be stressed when you go through medical training. They indoctrinate you into ways of being and thinking that cause you to be stressed. So I had a lot of anger and anxiety and relationship problems as I went through my 7 years of medical training, and then when I opened my practice of internal medicine, I would get angry. I would get angry at my patients sometimes if they didn't follow my advice or they would make a bad decision regarding their health or something like that. So, but it wasn't just. I mean, it was everywhere. I just couldn't control it. I would get angry at the drop of a dime, and I didn't like it. But there was nothing much I could do about it. I tried all the standard, anger management techniques and deep breathing and relaxation and all that kind of stuff. And it maybe helped a little, but every day I would wake up, I'm the same angry guy. So it was kind of like Groundhog's Day, which is kind of interesting because that's my birthday. February 2nd is my birthday. But it was literally like Groundhog's Day. You wake up every morning, you're the same angry person, and nothing changed it. And really at that point, if you'd asked me at that point, did I think I would ever change? I would have said no. I would have said, that's just my personality. I don't think it's ever going to go away. I've tried all kinds of things to fix it. Nothing's worked. So my conclusion would have been at that time, for me, it's just not possible to be any different, or to imagine myself being any different with regards to anger in my life. And then fast forward a couple years later, and I've gone through a lot of personal development work, and I've learned a lot of things from a lot of interesting people. And I finally figured out how to cure my own anger problems as well as anxiety and relationship issues and stuff. And now I have hardly any anger at all. And when I look back and I say, boy, I had that ability in me all the time. I just didn't know I had it. I just didn't have the right perspective or the right understanding of anger to, utilize that ability that I already had back then. But I wouldn't have believed it if you'd have told me it was possible back then, because truly my only experience in life was in my young adult life was getting angry and not being able to control it.
And so the breathing exercises, the anger management, the old style way of doing it wasn't working.
Yeah, I mean, it maybe helped a little bit, but as soon as it wears off, you're back to, you got the same, you're getting angry at the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. It doesn't stop you from getting angry. It just helps you, cool down a little bit, which is nice, but I wanted to stop getting angry. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life managing my anger. I wanted to stop being angry, which is a whole different thing.
Yeah, and as we're having this conversation, we focus a lot on families, as you know, and that's
Yes,
another reason why you wanted to come on the show again, is because you like looking at also these families is like, well, we need the moms to be less angry. We need the dads to be less angry, because when we reduce that anger and control that anger, then it totally changes the whole atmosphere for our
yeah,
children. So the
yeah,
children aren't seeing the anger and the flashes and getting used to that as being quote unquote normal. And
yeah,
then they're also able to start reducing and eliminating, controlling their anger, because they can see their adults, their role models doing it, and then they
absolutely,
can learn how and things like that. So this is
absolutely,
going to be a wonderful topic, because even though you speak to corporate, you speak to other doctors and things like that, you also really want to talk to our families and say, hey,
sure,
parents, we can do better for our children.
yes. It's funny. I just actually I did a podcast not too long ago
Uh-huh.
with another husband and wife. I
Uh-huh.
think that's the second time that you were the first.
Yeah.
This was another husband and wife team that do a podcast.
Uh-huh.
And so we did the podcast the other day, and they really liked it. They enjoyed it. And after we finished, we were just chatting, and turns out they live like 3 hours from me in Florida, where I live.
Okay.
And they invited me to come up to their home
Mhm.
and do a workshop, personal workshop for their family. So they had 6 kids, and
Nice.
all the kids were home from school. So
Mhm.
they ranged in age from 24 to 8. 5 boys, 5 girls, and 1 boy. The boy was the second oldest.
Uh-huh.
And last Saturday, I drove up to their place.
Mhm.
We had lunch, and the whole family sat around in their living room, and we did like a 3-hour workshop where I taught them the principles in the book, and I left them copies of the book, and we had a great time. They were interacting back and forth about anger episodes that they had between them, and it was everybody got whole new perspectives on where the anger was coming from that they hadn't seen before. Educationally, it was like fantastic, and I was just pleased, to have, I gave up my Saturday to do that, but it was really fun, and I really enjoyed it. And I remember when I was younger, my parents used to take me to some kind of a thing on Saturday where about science when I
Mhm.
was real young, and drop me off and pick me up a couple hours later. And I was exposed to these speakers, every week that I never would have met before, and really helped me, go into science and be interested in science. So it was kind of like paying that back,
Yeah.
to another generation. So it was kind of cool. But
And
it really is education. And I really want to get some of the stuff into the schools, into either homeschooling or into public schooling, where I think people really need to have a better way of understanding their emotions in general and anger in particular.
yeah.
So hopefully we can talk about some of those things that should be taught that are not being taught.
Yeah, see that's I
Mhm.
really like that, because even in her last question, she kept saying reduce, control, and anger. And you don't try and control anger. You don't try and reduce anger. You try and actually, it sounds like, eliminate it earlier in the process before it even gets to that point.
Yeah, well,
So,
reducing is not bad because you want to reduce, but you can either reduce or eliminate it as opposed to manage it, which is
right,
once it's,
managing or controlling. So even our words that we normally use, that we're
yes,
used to talking around it, we're used to
Yeah.
talking about anger management or
yes,
control.
yes,
And
yes,
so we're bringing in a new kind of vocabulary
Yeah.
around the anger issue. And I
yes,
really, really appreciate that. And it's
yes,
really important. And we need to get this information out there.
yes, yes.
So let's just jump right in. What's something that you would give to our families and say, let's do this to get that elimination of anger going?
Okay. Well, the first thing is most of us have been, we talk a lot about disinformation today. Everybody wants to, reduce disinformation. We're talking mainly like in the political environment, but there's a lot of disinformation around about personal health things and anger and stuff and emotions.
Yeah.
And so we've all been taught this model of understanding anger, which is actually wrong,
Okay.
which I was taught when I was in medical school and I believed, and then lo and behold, found out it wasn't correct. So we're kind of taught this direct cause effect model as like a 1-2, one causes two. So we see something, that causes us to be angry. Somebody does something, they lie to us, they steal from us, they damage something of ours, they embarrass us in public or something, or they don't do what they said they were going to do, whatever it is we see, and then we feel the anger immediately. And it looks like it's a direct 1-2 cause effect. Pretty common sense, So we all have this common sense cause effect model of anger, and like one causes two. What I found out almost 40 years ago, after a lot of personal development work, that it's actually 4 steps in the process.
Okay.
It's 1, 2, 3, 4. And steps 2 and 3, causes 2 and 3 are invisible. So we don't see them because they're inside us. They're in our brains, they're in our bodies, and we're not seeing it. We do see the things that people are doing that trigger the anger. But what we don't see is what's actually producing the anger, which is we have these filters through which we view everything. And that's another thing that a lot of people don't understand is we never see the world exactly as it is or as things happen. We're always filtering through whatever kind of filters our brain has developed, because there's just too much information coming at our brains at one time that it can't handle it all. So it has to limit it. It has to chunk it down and leave some things out and figure out what's important and just focus on that. And our brain's doing that all the time. So it's a filtering process. And we have all kinds of filters that we get over the years based on our past experiences. And some we get from our society, from our culture, that just get ingrained to us. So ideas about right and wrong and stuff like that. Like in today's age, chopping off heads is wrong. In centuries ago, in certain cultures, it was the thing to do. It was okay in certain circumstances. So these things change, the filters change, the way we see things change. So we have these filters, and that's like the first set of invisible causes. We don't realize when we get angry, we're looking through 3 very specific filters. We're looking at the world in 3 very specific ways. And if you're not looking in those ways, you can't get angry. Now, if you have anxiety, let's say, you're looking through different filters, but you're still looking through filters. You're looking at the world in a certain way to make you anxious. And we kind of know this is true because we know, like, you two could be standing next to each other, see the same event, right? And one of you may get angry and the other one may have no anger at all. So it can't be the event by itself that's doing it. It has to be what's going on internally. But we don't know what it is. We can't see it, feel it, taste it, sense it. We don't know it's happening, but that's what's happening. We're seeing the world through filters. So the 3 filters are actually pretty simple. You don't have to be like a rocket scientist or a psychiatrist to understand them. So the first one is we have to see somebody doing something bad and wrong that they shouldn't be doing. So we have this negative judgment. So we don't get it. If we look at something and somebody's doing something and we think it's wonderful, terrific, fantastic, we don't get angry, do we?
No.
No, we're looking at it through a negative filter. They're doing something bad and wrong. Okay. The second filter is that we're seeing there's some hurt or harm or some negative impact from whatever they're doing. So either we're negatively impacted or somebody we care about is negatively impacted. So that's the second filter. And then the third filter is we're looking at the person who's doing the bad and wrong thing, and we have this very narrow filter of blame where we just blame them exclusively, and we don't see any other causes. We just see what they're doing, and it looks like that's the whole story. So we have like these blinders on, or our filters have like blinders, give us blinders, and we only see what they're doing. We don't see any other causes that might have been playing a role. So we have these filters that tend to distort what's actually happening. And if you look through those filters and you see things that way and you believe that they're true, you'll get angry. So Christina, can you think of a time ever in your life, ever, when you got angry about anything? It doesn't have to be at Herb. It could be about anything,
Anything. Well, there's always the driving situation, right? But but more importantly, like whenever I was in school, when I was teaching, right? Mm-hmm. So, a parent would come in and say something, or another teacher would come in and say something, and then I would get angry. I'd get upset. It's like, well, but that doesn't have to be that way, or that's not the way it really happened. Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So that happens. And if you got angry, you were looking at it through those 3 filters. So the parent who was saying, or the teacher, whoever was saying that, was doing something wrong in your estimation. Mm-hmm. Okay. You were being negatively impacted because you knew that there were other possibilities that they weren't looking at, and they were kind of frustrating your attempt to have those possibilities come to fruition. And who was responsible for them saying what they said?
They were responsible for what they said, and I'm responsible for how I reacted to it.
True. But the way you reacted because those 3 filters came in, and in a way you kind of aren't responsible for those filters because they're like knee-jerk, automatic perceptions that you didn't choose to do. They just happened automatically. You are responsible for what you do once you get triggered. And once those filters get triggered, then you have some choices.
Right.
But literally, that happened. It was kind of beyond your control when it happened. But then you have control once it does happen of what you're going to do. But the point is that you anytime you have any anger episode about anything, it'll always be because you're looking through those three filters. So do you have an example, Herbert, where you've ever been angry about anything?
Oh, yeah.
Anything.
So I hurt my head, got a lot of brain damage. I get angry about a lot of things because some of the chemicals in my mind go off. So I have a lot of different filters from my youth.
All right. Are you angry at you, or are you angry at whatever happened that caused the damage, the accident, or whatever it was?
All of it. So,
either way, let's say you do something one day and you get angry at yourself.
Okay.
Forget your particular example, but suppose you drop something, you break something, something you should have done.
Right.
And you did. Okay, so if we're angry at ourselves, we're looking at ourselves through the same filters. I did something I shouldn't have done, or bad and wrong. Something was negatively impacted. I broke the vase, or I broke the object, or whatever, or I hurt my finger, or whatever I did, or I hurt my head, or whatever I did, and I was totally responsible or to blame. So now I'm angry at myself.
Yes.
Right? So it's the same three filters. If you're angry at your computer because your computer goes on the blip one day, right? The computer's
I get angry at myself because I want to do something and I don't do it.
Yeah.
And so I go through that, well, you should be able to do it, and how come you're not doing it? And then I get really like in this mood and angry at myself because I know I want to do it. I know I can do it, and then I don't do it, and I start blaming
So by not doing it, you look through those, you see yourself not doing it through those filters. You say, I'm doing something bad and wrong that I shouldn't be doing because I know I should be able to do it. I should do it, but I'm not. Now, and I'm being negatively impacted now by whatever it is I'm not doing. So I'm not accomplishing whatever I wanted to accomplish. And who's responsible or to blame? You, for not doing it. So that's how anger works all the time. It doesn't matter what the thing is that we're angry about. You could be angry at the Congress. You can be angry at an organization. You can be angry at God. I mean, you can be angry at anything. And when you're angry, it's always coming from those three filters. So if someone has a child that has a bad illness or something like that, you can, and you're very religious, you could be angry at God. Why? Well, God shouldn't have done that. That's not what God should be doing. And I'm negatively impacted. My child's negatively impacted. And who's to blame? God is to blame. So these filters are always there whenever we're angry. I've been doing this with people for 40 years and myself, and it's never not been the case that once I discovered what the hell was going on, and once I knew what these three filters were, every time I got angry, it wasn't a mystery anymore. I knew exactly why I was angry. Yeah. Now, the interesting thing is, in and of itself, that doesn't get you very much other than, some wisdom about why you got angry. But the interesting thing is, a lot of times I found out that those three filters were off in some way. Something was wrong in the way I was looking at things. I was missing things, or the filters were distorting things. That's where the real action is, because when you can figure out where if you know what your filters are, then you can start asking, is this one true? Is that one true? Is this one true? And when you start asking it, you'll find out a lot of these things aren't really true.
Yeah, so just ask, it's like, how do you start clearing these filters then? So
well, you can't rid of them. They're built in. They become ingrained in your brain and your body, and they're not going anywhere. Okay, they're going to keep getting triggered. But once you process a couple examples of anger where the same filter comes up and you realize the filter's distorted and it's not showing you the whole picture, then you can fill in the gaps. And a lot of times when you do that, you go like, oh, well, there's nothing to be angry about now, because now I see the whole story. I didn't see it before. I only saw part of it. Let me give you an example. So the couple, the family I told you about with the 7 kids.
Yeah.
So one of the examples they shared was the father who A, is Italian, and B, has owned a restaurant for 20 years. Yeah. Right. His pet peeve is he doesn't like to see food being wasted.
Right.
Right. So he walks into, so one of his older daughters was in the kitchen one day, and he walks in and he sees her preparing a chicken, which is fine, except he knows that there were two chickens in the refrigerator and they had different expiration dates. And he sees her using the one that was going to expire, you know, in the later time, and not using the one that was going to expire the soonest.
Yeah.
So he goes ballistic and he starts yelling and screaming at her. And she's like completely caught off guard and is like, what do you, and what are you accusing me of? You know, it's like, and the thing is, she knows that both chickens have the exact same expiration date. The husband's filter told him that one was different, one was expires earlier than the other one in his mind. Okay, that's the reality that he believed was true. She knew, on the other hand, that she knew the expiration dates on both chickens, and she didn't have to worry about which one she picked. So she just picked either one of them, and she knew she wasn't doing anything wrong. But here he is accusing her because in his world, his filter said, you took the wrong chicken.
And it's going to be wasted because it's going to expire.
Yeah, because that we could have kept that one a few days longer,
Right.
and then you're using that one first, and then yeah. So, but it was funny when they found out, when they saw the pattern, and they realized and he realized that he had mistakenly assumed something that wasn't true, which is what I'm trying to say, is a lot of times our automatic filters, the way we perceive things, is not going to be correct. So
how do you get that space between the trigger and the reaction? Because, okay, you're triggered, but
Yep.
you now you want to eliminate anger. So you get that trigger, you say it's in the body, it's not necessarily going away. How do
Yes.
you get the space to be able to
Not
change?
freak out.
Well, you can create that space anytime. You can disengage from the anger anytime you want and start to look at it now. Okay, so it's like we have two parts to ourselves. We have this automatic reactive part. It's kind of knee jerk, and it's going to do its own thing, you know, the way it does it. But then there's another part of us that can kind of like very quickly kind of step outside and say, whoa, wait a second. You know, it's the same thing if you get an urge. Let's say you're on a diet and you get an urge to eat ice cream. You know, you can say, well, I'm on a diet. I'm not going to eat ice cream today. I'll ignore that urge. So we have that ability to kind of step outside of whatever got triggered inside of us, and to look at it differently, or to ask questions about it, or to investigate it, you know, see if it's true or not. So to give you an example, my wife and I are about to celebrate our 40th wedding anniversary next month, which would not have happened if I hadn't figured this stuff out before I met her. Because all of my relationships in my 20s and 30s just crashed and burned. And so I had gotten rid of my anger before I met her. She never had a lot of anger in her life. So consequently, we haven't had a lot of anger in our relationship. We don't have a lot of fights. We don't have arguments, a lot of arguments. But in the beginning of our relationship, there was this one odd circumstance where we would start to fight with each other. And it was so odd for us that it stuck out like a sore thumb. Now, if you're fighting all the time and arguing all the time, you wouldn't notice one from the other. But we had a baseline of like very few arguments. And so this popped up. It was like waving a red flag, said something's going on here. So I started looking through this, you know, thing, this framework that we're talking about. And what would usually happen, it will only happen when we went on a car trip somewhere. And it wouldn't happen when we went on the trip to the destination. We were driving there. It wouldn't happen when we were there and on the vacation. It only happened when we drove home. Usually I'd be driving, we'd be on our way home, and my wife would say, oh, there's something over here that I'd really like to go see. It's only an hour off our path. Let's go over here and do that. And my immediate reaction would be, no, we're not doing that. And she would go, what do you mean, no, we're not doing that? She said, we're not doing that. And then we'd start, you know, sort of like going at each other, you know. And after this happened like 3 times, I said, wait a minute, I gotta take a look at this. There's something going on here. There's something fishy here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I looked at the filter. So I said, all right, do I see her doing something bad and wrong? Yes, I see her doing something bad and wrong. What did I see her doing bad and wrong? I saw her, well, we should go directly home. If we're going home, we should not deviate an hour off of our path. That's wrong. And the reason I saw it as wrong is because that's how my family did it when I was a kid. Okay. And to me, that was the right way to do it. Now, her family did it differently, obviously. She was a single child, and her mother would always tell her father, I want to go over here, and they would go over there. So as soon as I asked the question, was that really true? Was she really doing something wrong? As soon as I asked the question, I said, wait a second. No, it's not really wrong. It's just different than I would do it.
Mhm.
And as soon as I saw that, I realized that it was wrong of me to have judged her, to have done something wrong when it was really just a matter of preference. That neither one of us was right, neither one of us was wrong. It's just I had judged her as being wrong, which was false, you know? And as soon as I saw that, it's like, well, that ended that problem, because from that point on, it was never a problem for me if she wanted to deviate from the route home. I said, sure, honey, if you want to go over there, let's go over there. Because I didn't see it anymore as like a sin. You know,
Right.
she was committing some huge crime or some sin,
Yeah.
because the right way to drive home is to go directly home and all that kind of stuff. So again, that's how, you know, you get these filters. You see things through your filter the way you've been programmed through your life experiences or family upbringing to see things, and sometimes you judge people inappropriately based on that,
Mhm.
when they're not really doing something wrong, but they're just doing however they got programmed to do something.
Right.
That was an amazing example, because I don't say that's necessarily a problem with this, but we're still negotiating that one, because mm, uh, it's a more recent development. But when I get in a car, it's like, oh, we got this far to go. It's going to take me this much time to get there, and I bet you I can get there quicker than that. And so if we have to stop to eat, or if we have to stop too many times to go to the bathroom, then it messes up my timing and my racing, and I'm not going to win my internal race to get there by the time I thought. And so
Right.
there are so
But that's a different situation, because in our situation, we didn't have any reason to be home at any particular time.
Right.
So it really didn't
right.
matter if we went an hour or two off of our way.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was just a particular timing in my own head that existed
Yeah,
just for
but
me.
it was a real, I mean, you would be negatively impacted if you did go off the path. It would take you more time and you wouldn't hit your target or something. So that is something that does have to be negotiated. Right?
Yes.
So it's, again, it's not a right or wrong thing. It's just you have this game you're playing, and you want to
And I
play
was
it
the only
well.
one playing it, and she
Yes,
didn't know. And
yes,
now that we talk about it,
yes,
it's like funny. It's a negotiation. It's like,
Yeah.
now
yeah,
that I realize that, once I figured that out, then it's like, okay, I adjust my time, and I'm not grumpy when we stop to eat. I'm not grumpy when we
yeah,
stop to go to the bathroom.
yeah,
I'm there, I'm present, and then I adjust my time, and I just change my game. And
yeah,
so
yeah.
that
It's like I have a similar thing. My wife has a Prius,
Mhm.
and when she's driving and I'm in the passenger seat, I always start to get frustrated that she's driving slowly, because she likes to drive slowly. And the reason she likes to drive slowly, she's trying to maximize the miles per gallon, where they give you a readout, you know, she's trying to get it up to like 50 miles per gallon or more, you know, which is like a game. It's a little game that she plays.
Right.
It's one of the fun things for her for having a Prius. And so I have to kind of be understanding of the fact that she's got that motivation going on.
Mhm.
And that's what she wants to do. So, you know, it's like, again, it's not that it's wrong. It's
Mhm.
just, there's no reason to judge her negatively for it.
Right.
You know, it's like, that's her car.
What
That's how she likes to drive. When I'm in my car, I drive the way I want to drive.
Awesome. Well, one of the things I've been thinking about as we've been having this discussion is, if we're a parent trying to share this with our children, right? How do we explain these filters, or how do we let them see that it is a little bit different for each other, right? And one of the things that I think of a lot is modeling, that if the parent can model, oh, well, here's the situation where your brother sees it this way
Yep.
and you see it this way.
Yep.
Do you notice that there's a difference in the way we're looking at the situation? Because
Yep.
kids will, pick up on it some by just watching us. But if we actually have that discussion sometimes, whenever we're having some of those disagreements, then they can start adjusting their filters or noticing that there's filters
Yeah.
from
And
doing
the other thing you can do as a parent to model
Mm-hmm.
is, let's say you got angry at your kid about something. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And in the moment, you didn't have the presence of mind to think about these things, which we
Right.
usually often we don't. But later on, you thought about it and you realize, oh, these filters kicked in, and I looked at it this way, and it was a little distorted. So you can go to your kids and say, hey, I just wanted to apologize for getting angry at you, 6 hours ago, whatever it was. I didn't realize I was looking at it this way. and I saw it in a way that wasn't really correct. And now I see that I was wrong. And I just want to let you know that I apologize for judging you, negatively, or for blaming you for whatever, and it wasn't totally your fault, blah, blah, blah. Whatever it is that you're demonstrating, that you've within yourself, you've identified your filters, and you've seen where they went off track. And now you're letting your kids know that and then without directly, saying to them, you've got to look at things differently. They see you looking at things differently. And then it's going to be the kind of thing where they might eventually want to do that themselves,
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that modeling the behavior, because we have to remember that our children are still learning all of this. They don't know all of this. So by modeling and talking about it, that's how they get the information they need to either wipe those filters or not build those filters or whatever.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, and like, when everybody understands the anger game, and how it plays out in our heads, and in our brains, then that can be a lot of fun in a relationship or in a family, because we can catch each other when we got caught up in a mistaken filter, and kind of like, as long as it's kind of agreed upon in advance that okay, you can call me on my filters and I'll call you on your filters, and it gets to be a very positive, reinforcing.
Oh, are you
thing.
getting angry? Ooh, are you getting angry? That could be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a good family. I mean, because those families who already have a baseline of either being able to joke around with each other or be a little sarcastic with each other, but they, do it in a fun, loving way.
Yeah, but more seriously, I notice you're getting angry. Is there something we're not communicating? Is there something we're not seeing?
Ask
How
questions.
Where it gets into trouble is when one or more people want to absolutely be right about everything that they see, and they don't want to consider the possibility that they could be wrong about something, which actually, to tell you the truth, that was my biggest barrier in back 40 years ago, when I was, a very competent physician, a well-trained physician, and functioning well as a doctor, but I had all these personal issues I couldn't solve. And one of the reasons I couldn't solve them is I was unwilling to consider I might be wrong about stuff.
Yeah.
Got it.
But I was
those
really
people who think they know stuff really irritate the hell out of those of us who really do.
Yeah, but let me tell you, I got that. But as a doctor, that I was trained for like 7 years. It was a boot camp, and the worst thing that you could possibly do as a doctor is be wrong. That was like a big taboo. Because people get hurt if you make the wrong diagnosis, or you give the wrong treatment, or even put the decimal point on a prescription in the wrong place. So everything's got to be really right. So you're constantly drilled every day. Don't be wrong. Don't be wrong. Don't be wrong, which makes you a good physician. Okay. But then when you go home, and you want to be right in your relationship all the time, or you don't want to consider your filters that are driving your emotions could be faulty, and you want to be right about everything you see and think and feel, then you're in trouble in your personal domains, even though that's enabling you to function very, very well professionally. So then I had a hard time breaking through that, because it took a lot for me to be able to be willing to admit I was so wrong about so many other things, because I had been well educated, top grades, all this reinforcement that I was right, and the stigma in my own head about considering I might be wrong was a block, where I couldn't look at these things, and I couldn't discover what was wrong about them, and then what some of the things that were useful that lied outside of what I believed.
And I love that example, because when I was in the classroom all the time, being the teacher, it used to be that the teacher was always supposed to be right. The teacher was always supposed to know the answer. And later in my career, I learned that I actually got to engage with my students more and understand them more whenever they would ask me a question. And I could say, oh, I don't really know, but let's find out together. Because then it was teamwork, and then it was fun because we were doing it together. And it was okay to not know all of the answers. I mean, you have to know your basic curriculum, but other than that, if they ask you a different question, it's like, awesome, let's go find that out. Or that's your homework now. You go find the answer and bring it back to the rest of us so that we can.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you don't have to always be right. And parents, I guess that's the message for parents, is that, yeah, parents need to know a lot, but they don't always have to have the answers.
Yes.
It's okay to admit to a child, oh, maybe we need to look that up, or to the other spouse, oh, maybe we need to do some research on that together, or better yet, oh, I know that that's an area that I'm not strong in. So let's go find somebody, a coach like you, like us, to help us work through this part that we don't understand.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so now we talked about the 3 filters,
Yep.
and we talked about the if statement, is that true statement.
Mhm.
How do those work together to start eliminating anger? Because you used to be very angry and now you don't get angry anymore.
Right.
Where does that
Final.
shift start occurring?
Okay. So remember, we started off by saying we think anger is a 1-2 process.
Right.
Direct cause effect. And I said there's actually 4 steps. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we've talked about 2, which are the filters.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a 3rd step that's also invisible and inside us. And what happens is our brains are doing the filtering. Okay. And then the next thing that happens is our brains, and this happens very fast, our brains tell us that what's coming through the filters is the whole truth, nothing but the truth, the complete truth. They give it a stamp of truth. And they say there's no filtering going on here. You're seeing the real truth, which of course you're not. Okay. But your brain wants you to believe that what's coming through the filters is true. Now, if you go all the way back millions of years, the prehistoric time, that's how brains had to develop, because you had to make these really fast decisions, danger, not danger, run, stay. And so your brain would create these filters and it would tell you one of those things. And then it told you it's true, you got to act on it. Okay. And then you would run or whatever. Okay. And if you ran and you were fast enough, then you didn't get eaten and that brain got reproduced. So our brains have developed for millions of years to be this way, but they filter and then they tell you, well, I'm not filtering. It's like if the media filters and biases, and then they sit there and tell you we're not doing that.
Yeah.
We're telling you the truth. Our brains do the same thing. It's a trick.
It's a trick.
And so, and remember I said, it's not just looking through the filters that causes the anger. It's when you look through the filters and you believe that everything is true that's coming through there and there's nothing missing. When in truth, there's a lot of things missing.
Yeah.
So my example with the driving home with my wife, what was missing in my filter was that, she's not doing something wrong. This is just a difference of preference. And then we had different family upbringings. That was missing from my filter. But it was real and it's true. Okay. But that's what happened. That's why we had the difference of opinion. Okay. Or the difference of preference. So knowing that that's how anger works, something triggers you, you see it, everybody sees it, comes through your filters. You see it a particular way now, 3 particular ways. All right. And now you believe they're true, and then you get the emotion. The way you unpack that is go back to the filters and you say, is this true? Is this true? Is this true? Because your brain's already told you it's true. Right. Now you have to be like an attorney and you have to argue the other side that your brain is taking. Right. And see if you can see where they may not be true. Now, sometimes they will be true. Or one or more of them will be true. But if you can debunk any one of them, any one of the 3, it will help reduce the anger. So, for example, in relationships, it's almost never the case that if there's a problem going on in a relationship, that one person's 100% responsible and the other has 0 cause in the matter. Almost never happens, because that's not how relationships work. One person may be more to blame for whatever's going on, but the other person may have been letting it happen for a long time, might not have said anything or done anything about it, or actually might have done some things on their own that might have actually brought on more of the same behavior, okay, without being aware that that's what they're doing, okay. So there's always like a co-participation, co-creation of a problem, but our brains will tell us, no, it's just your fault. I didn't play a role at all. and then blame you totally. And that's part of the anger mechanism, to see you as 100% responsible and me or somebody else not. So, for example, I used to love to get angry in my early angry days when people would cut me off in traffic. Okay. And you could really rev it up. When you're in your car, you can really work up the anger, honk the horn, do the gestures, all that stuff, which I used to think was therapeutic. I thought that was what you're supposed to do. And then after doing some of this work for a while, I'm driving down the road one day on a freeway and somebody pulls into the entrance lane in front of me, and I have to slam on my brakes because they were pulled in so slowly. I had to slam on my brakes to avoid hitting them. And I start to get angry and then I went like, oh, I was going 80 miles an hour in the right-hand lane. Whoops.
A little bit quick.
I can't see them as being totally to blame now because I played a role, you know? And then I remembered there were times when I was in that same position. You know, I was coming on an entrance ramp to a highway, and you know how you just take a quick glance and you see a car, it's in the distance. You can't really tell how fast it's going a lot of the times. And, you know, I would do a quick look and it looked like I had plenty of time and I would just leisurely kind of pull in on the highway. And all of a sudden that car's on top of me honking the horn. And I knew I wasn't a bad driver. I just didn't appreciate that they were going that fast. So, but when you see your own role in the matter, it's kind of hard to stay angry. And I just couldn't keep the anger going because I saw it kind of broke up that one filter that they were 100% responsible or to blame. And I saw that I played probably just as much of a role in causing it to happen as they did, you know? And then when you see that, it's like, I can't be angry at them anymore. It's not like totally their fault.
Yeah, so after I hurt my head, that got really bad with me. And I've been working on it for quite a while and it's getting better again. But sometimes that initial reaction is still so quick.
Yeah.
So do we get rid of that initial, because you talk about eliminating anger. How can we actually get in front of that?
You can get rid of it, but not immediately. Because remember, it's conditioned.
Okay.
It's automatic. So in the beginning, as you start to do this process, you start to look at these filters. Each time you have it happen, you want to work through it so you can remind yourself what the truth is. Okay? But it's going to happen again. You can bet on it. Okay? It may happen 30 seconds later, you know, but it's going to happen again. And it's going to happen multiple times again. All right. But each time it happens, if you continue to do this and say, okay, wait a minute, my filters told me this is true, but wait a minute, now I know that this is true. And I'm going to, you know, in my mind make that correction. You do that a whole bunch of times over months and months, you're actually laying down new tracks in your brain that now your reactivity is not going to be so strong. And so the old reactivity is going to start to weaken and the new tracks that you're laying down are going to strengthen. So for me, in the beginning, I would still react to things, but then after about a year of doing this regularly, I stopped reacting to a lot of the stuff that I used to react to, and I haven't reacted to it since. Okay, or maybe if I do, it doesn't last very long if it happens. So you can change over time and have less reactivity, but in the beginning, you should assume you're going to be just as reactive, but now you have a way to deal with it better. You have a way to negate it, you know, and you can turn that anger off anytime you want just by telling the truth or reminding yourself what's true. And you may have to do that over and over again. You know, I call it, when I'm coaching people in my coaching program, this issue comes up, I tell them it's kind of like playing whack-a-mole. You're literally playing whack-a-mole with your brain. Exactly. Your brain keeps saying this is true, and you got to go, no, it's not. Then your brain, this is true, no, it's not. And then it's going to pop up again. It's going to pop up again, and each time it pops up, you just whack it. You got the hammer of truth that you just whack it down with, you know. And it may come. It's going to keep coming back up for quite a while, probably. And then one day it'll stop.
And that's one of the reasons why it's so important to start training our kids, teaching our kids now when they're younger, right? Because if they don't have so much ingrained, if they don't have so much of that track already set, you know, if we can help start looking at this earlier, then hopefully they won't ever get to where we were. I mean, you know, we're finding this out as later adults, is like, wow, wouldn't that be amazing if we could really get it to our kids younger? So that's what you were saying about the education system.
Yes, getting this into the education system. Getting us in the education system.
Yeah.
Sooner where kids, because you know what, it's really, kids should not be graduating high school or college without understanding where their emotions come from.
Mhm.
And the same way we don't teach about relationships and how to succeed in relationships. You shouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, we're trying to prepare people for life.
Right.
And yeah, we give them all the academic knowledge and know-how and stuff, but are we,
Well,
how
no,
good
that
are
was in the
we?
past. The academic knowledge isn't taught in schools anymore so much.
Okay,
This is
well,
the out of the box. This is our
yeah,
whole vibrant family education
yeah.
shtick.
But even when we did a good job of doing that, we still weren't teaching kids how to be happy, how to have less stress, how to, have less anger and anxiety. And how to be successful in relationships. We're not teaching those skills.
Yeah, we're not
We,
teaching people how to be human anymore. We're teaching
yeah,
people how to fit into certain boxes. And we
yeah.
really need to go back to teaching people how to be human.
Yeah. And I tell you, I went through all my medical training, 7 years of medical training. They didn't teach me much about being human. I mean, they taught me about hearts and livers and
Right.
spleens and kidneys and that kind of stuff. They didn't teach me a whole lot about the human beings that had those organs. That's why I had to find that out on my own after I got out of practice, into practice and started taking care of patients. And we're like, wow, there's a whole lot of stuff I don't really understand,
Yeah.
about what makes people do what they do and feel the way they feel and think the way they think. You
Yeah.
know, it's funny when I was going through school, the subject I hated the most was philosophy.
Mhm.
I thought that was like the dumbest waste of time, to sit around reading books about what a bunch of dead people thought, and then they never reached any final conclusion about anything. And it was just really just a waste of time. And then I got into practice and started taking care of patients. And I realized everybody's a philosopher. We
Yep.
all have our philosophies, and that drives our decision making, and whether we decide to go to the doctor or not go to the doctor, and then when we do, what attitude we walk in with, and
Mhm.
what beliefs we have about the medical system or the insurance system. Everybody is a philosopher. So I started getting interested in philosophy. I
You
said,
again. I love it.
Yeah, I kind of felt that way about psychology. It's like, this is just all hocus pocus. But
yeah,
then as you get older, it's like, wow, this stuff really does start
yeah,
ticking boxes and ringing bells. It's like this is important stuff that even
yeah,
children should be taught, even
yeah,
though
yeah,
as a child it doesn't ring right yet.
Doesn't
But
make sense,
yeah.
but
So one of the important things that I always like to emphasize is, we walk around with this belief that we can't do much about our anger if we have it. If
right.
it's a problem for us, we can't do much about it. And by the way, when I say anger, I'm not just talking about the big blow-ups, where the road rage, or you're going to punch a hole in a wall or something like that. It could be the little things every day, like little annoyances, little irritations,
Mhm.
things like that. That's just as much anger too, and they can build up over time and cause problems.
Mhm.
But a lot of times, if we have those things, like society tells us, well, you just have to put up with it. You can't do much about it. You can't really get rid of it because it's part of life. And one of the reasons I wrote the book is to show people that not only did I get rid of it, but a lot of people I work with, I was able to help them get rid of it, and that they can get rid of it too, if they have this 1, 2, 3, 4 understanding of anger instead of the old 1, 2, which doesn't really get them very far. Okay, but if they
you talked
really
about the
understand,
quick blow ups, but there's and the little annoyances, but there's also the long, slow anger, like
yeah,
you're angry at your job, you're angry at your life. There's something that's been going on for years that you have, and
yeah.
it's just
But
this
it's the
this
same three filters. You're just holding on to them, and you're not willing to dig into them and question them. Okay. Um, yeah. There's a lot of that. There was I was reading a book on how minds change, or how
Mhm.
you change people's minds. And there was an example. There was this organization. I forget the name of it. You probably remember it. They picketed some funerals of soldiers,
the
uh,
church.
or a gay soldiers, something like that. So they were anti-gay,
Mhm.
and it was a whole church, and the whole church, they indoctrinated all their kids to hate gay people and to see them
Oh.
as evil. And this young girl grew up I think her parents were leaders in the church, so she grew up and she took in all the conditioning, and she was out there protesting and holding signs and leading things. And then when the internet came along, she started interacting with some people on social media, some gay people on social media, and she found out, well, they're not as evil as I've been told they are.
Right.
And there was that little crack in that, that
Mhm.
pseudo reality that she'd been given. And then
Yeah.
she eventually left the church. She said, I've been, what they told me wasn't true, about these people. And so she had an awakening of herself, and she was willing to let go of all the conditioning that had her be angry for, I guess she was like 14 years old before she saw the light. But she had a lot of anger in her that whole time, and really was willing, she would have burned things down if she could have, to express that anger. And then she was able to finally see through the falsehoods and let go of the whole thing. And there's lots of other examples probably of people who've been held on to things for many, many years, and then boom, all of a sudden, they see things more correctly and their anger's gone.
Well, I mean, it even happens with families, unfortunately, who are like going through divorce and stuff. The spouses aren't able to let go of whatever it is that was festering all of that time. And so then
Yes.
even after the divorce, they're still not the best to each other, which unfortunately impacts the kids, right? So it's like,
Yes.
let's really look at these filters and let that anger go sooner so that we aren't, one, hurting ourselves by being angry, and then impacting others as well.
Yeah, and we talk about letting go of anger, and really, letting go is like the wrong metaphor.
Okay.
Okay, because it's not like you actively let go, or you can actively let go of your anger. If you're still thinking through the same three filters,
Right.
you're going to be living in anger.
Mm-hmm.
You can't let go of something until you discover that your three filters, you discover how they're faulty,
Yeah.
and that they are faulty. Then you don't have to do anything. Your anger will just go away. You don't have to let it go. It's gone because it requires the faulty filters to keep it going. And if you shoot holes in those filters and realize that they're not correct, then the anger just drops away without you having to do anything. So we think of letting go as like something we have to do.
Mm-hmm. But basically, it's cleaning the windows. Clean.
Oh, we froze for a sec.
Oh, hold on.
Am I here?
Oh,
Yep,
there you are.
there we
You're
go.
back. Froze for a sec.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So,
yeah,
okay,
cleaning the windows, cleaning those filters.
Yes.
So we kind of got through 3 steps. There's the situation that happens, then it goes through the filters, which is step 2. Then our brain tells us it's true, which is step
Yep.
3.
Yep.
So
And then we
what
get
is
the anger. The anger is step 4.
the anger is step 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so by interrupting the filters, by taking step 3, 2, and 3 and interrupting the filters, not interrupting, questioning the filters.
Questioning, yes. By going, remember Jen Psaki? Circle back.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we want to circle back. And we want to look at those filters again.
Yes, we're gonna look at those filters again. Awesome. Dr. Mort, this has been wonderful. And I hope that our families have really been picking up on all those gold nuggets on how to, impact their families in a positive way, how to change themselves in a positive way, and help start building those layers for our children so that they know how to deal with some of this kind of stuff. So with
Yes.
all this wonderful information, how do our parents, how do our audience get a hold of you? Tell them where to go, where to find you, so they can continue this discussion if it's a good fit for them.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I have a great handout for people that's free.
Mhm.
It's a short PDF handout. It's called The Best Anger Elimination Method You Can Find. And it's what we've been talking about here.
Mhm.
And it'll tells you more about anger. It tells you more about my 10-session coaching program. And the book that I recently released, where I take everything I teach in the 10-session program, and now I put it in book form, so you don't have to go through the 10 sessions. You can just get the book, and everything is in there. The only thing that's not in there is I can't do like a one-on-one,
Right.
tell me about this situation, and we can, the chickens have both had the same expiration date. I can't do that with you in that kind of detail. But so to get that handout, all you have to do is go to theangersolution.org. And that'll also get you on my mailing list, so we can communicate that way. I send out emails. I pick a topic every week about anger or stress, and I discuss it in 3 parts: Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It's kind of like blog posts. And so you can be in communication with me and email me if you need to. And that's the best way to get in touch and to find out more about me and about the book, which is available now on Amazon. And I highly recommend everybody listening go get it. And it's really got a lot of, much more than we were able to cover in this thing, but you get the meat of it sort of, but it gives you more detail, more examples. and it'll make it easier for you to be able to implement this kind of stuff in your life.
I love it. Thank you so very much. And of course, all of that stuff is also in the show notes, but we always like to say it out loud because that way they can hear it and then you can go find it and it all makes sense and everything like that. So, Dr. Moore, this has been amazing. Thank you for joining us. It has been a wonderful discussion, and I hope our families really get a chance to listen to this and take those gold nuggets and put them into practice. Don't just put them in your pocket and save them for later. Put them into practice.
Thank you so much for being here. There are so many people who find problems and just talk about it, but you're actually doing something about it. So you're one of the people out there changing lives for other people. And I totally appreciate you. I totally appreciate that you're willing to put yourself out there on the line and write books and throw this stuff out there so that other people can look at it and criticize it and come back to you. But over time, you just keep going and you're proven right. So again, thank you for what you do. Thank you for being here, and thank you for helping make the world a better place.
Oh, you're very welcome. Good to see you guys again and talk with you again. It's been fun.
Excellent.
And hopefully your audience got some value out of this.
I'm sure they probably did. All right, wonderful audience. Thank you for being with us on Bringing Education Home. We hope that you are enjoying the content, giving us some likes and reviews, and letting us know what else you want us to talk to you about. So let us know, send us a message, and until next time, we will see you later. Bye for now.
Bye for now.